Hello, everyone. Welcome to BSC News Live. Apologies, we're a bit late starting for the first time ever using Restream. There was a little bit of technical issues. I'm not sure what's going on, but fingers crossed it's going to be okay for the rest of the stream. As we mentioned earlier in the week, we have the guests today, Metaplex, with us, and it gives me great honor, and I'm very excited to introduce Mac from Metaplex. So welcome to the stream, Mac. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Firstly, how are you? How's your week been so far?
I'm doing great. Busy week. We're getting ready for NFT LA next week. So we'll be down in LA, me and a couple folks from Metaplex, meeting with a handful of creators, other users of the platform, and figuring out how we can serve creators better.
Very nice. Very good. So I take it you're from America. Is the whole team sort of based in America as well from Metaplex?
That's right. So the whole team's out here in the US. I'm based in Seattle. We all work remote, so you can find people all across the country from Metaplex.
Fantastic. Great. Well, firstly, would you be able just to give us maybe an overview of what Metaplex is?
Yeah, happy to do that. So Metaplex is a platform on Solana for elevating creators. And so really where we focus is a handful of things. One is the standards layer on Solana. So all NFTs that are built on Solana are Solana NFTs. And in addition to that, we have the Metaplex program library. So we have a handful of protocols and different programs for creating digital assets. And in addition to that, we also are developing applications or UIs at the top of the stack. So as you can see right here on the screen, Creator Studio is our no-code tool for interacting with the Metaplex program library, digital asset creations such as doing generative drops, one-of-ones, additions, things like that. So really just trying to make it easy for creators to create digital assets on the Solana blockchain.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. And why have you chosen to go with Solana? A lot of people that I talk to, well, that are into the Solana ecosystem, talk about the technology behind Solana, and it's about the tech in Solana. Would you be able to tell us why you've gone with and also sticking with Solana, but also maybe some of the benefits over a traditional EVM blockchain that Solana offers?
Yeah, happy to dig into that. So originally, actually, Metaplex was spun out of Solana Labs. So at the time when NFTs were first just getting started on Solana, Metaplex was the platform for that asset creation. And so one of the first programs that was created was something called Candy Machine. It's the most popular minting tool on Solana. It's something like 60 or 70% of NFTs on Solana have been minted using Candy Machine. And it was essentially a tool that made it possible for people to create NFTs on Solana. And since then, Metaplex has been spun out of Solana Labs and it's really expanded beyond some of those initial programs. So we're on V3 of Candy Machine. There's been a handful of different improvements to the standards layer as well, things like royalty enforcement and other tools that make it easier for creators to create digital assets. And also other programs as well, and developer tools to make it easier for developers to interact with the protocol. I think the reason that Solana has been a natural fit for Metaplex, in addition to being spun out of Solana Labs, of course, is that the speed of the network is just a huge advantage. And so when you think about kind of the NFT ecosystems that exist today out there, Ethereum is certainly the largest one, but many people will be surprised to find that Solana is actually the second largest NFT ecosystem. So if you look at different ecosystems out there, about 20% of secondary trading of all NFTs is Solana NFTs. In terms of actual NFTs that have been minted, Solana is up there as well. And in terms of the number of unique wallets that hold NFTs, it's pretty comparable between. There's closer to about 8 million unique wallets that hold NFTs on Ethereum, and about 7 million or so, maybe more. Actually, it's more like 7.5 million that hold NFTs on Solana. So it's a pretty large ecosystem. It's quite vibrant. And while some of the transaction sizes might be smaller, I think that actually kind of plays to some of the strengths of Solana. So it's a more accessible chain in terms of cost. You don't have to pay high gas fees and things like that to mint NFTs, trade NFTs. And so what it's resulted in is a ton of users who have found their kind of NFT home here on Solana. And some of the kind of the things you'll notice when you're playing around with NFTs on Solana is just how active and engaged the community is. So in terms of just users, these are people who are very passionate about NFTs, follow the space very closely, and it's made just a really great environment for Metaplex to build in and kind of build tech that powers the ecosystem.
Definitely. I do agree as well with a lot of what you said. I just put up a chart as well from the block.co, which shows, the the amount, the volume by chain of NFT trades. So as you said, Ethereum is the largest at the moment. Then also obviously Solana in pink there consistently second. One thing with Solana as well, I think since FTX and a lot of things came to light, a lot of people have been worried perhaps about the future of Solana. But putting the price of Solana aside, what do you see the future of Solana being, and where do you think Solana could and can and hopefully will go in the future?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So obviously the price movement has been challenged since FTX. I think that's hard to ignore. But on the technology side, I think that's actually where the chain has continued to shine. There's been significant improvements in different programs that are being released. There's still hackathons going on. You have something called Grizzlython that's going on right now that has kind of like a record number of applicants. Hacker houses are still happening all around the world. I know there was one in Turkey earlier this year that had great attendance, sold out immediately. And there's another one that was going on in India as well that's coming up. And so you're seeing tons of activity still on the chain. And I think the focus will continue to be on the tech. And so in terms of kind of what's going on in the NFT ecosystem, there's been huge advancements that I think actually in some ways were, I'd say some of the trends that you see kind of happening on Ethereum, they actually happen on Solana first. It's just that most people don't know it. So for example, kind of the royalty challenges that are going on Ethereum with OpenSea and Blur and some of the battles that are going on there and the implications and the fallouts that have affected creators there on Ethereum. Solana went through all of that starting back in September of last year. And since then has had a couple royalty enforcement standards that have come out since then. Three of them with kind of Metaplex being the one that the ecosystem has seemed to gravitate towards. And it's not just that Metaplex put out a royalty enforcement solution and it's just sitting there. You actually have all of the major marketplaces and protocols that everyone on Solana NFTs use has already integrated this solution and support it if the creators choose to use it. And that's frankly just several steps ahead of where the Ethereum ecosystem today is on a royalties enforcement kind of basis. You're seeing other technological improvements like compression, which will drastically lower the cost of minting NFTs. So for example, you'll see you'd be able to mint, call it a million NFTs for about $100. Which when you think about gas fees on Ethereum, obviously is quite a different story. And you can get to the point where if you want to say mint a billion NFTs, we're talking about $10,000 or so. And so the reduction in minting costs is really made possible by some of the technological advancements that you're seeing on Solana. And so while I think the token price certainly has an impact on the psyche of some of the users, from a technological standpoint, there's continuing to be significant improvements, and that's really where the focus is today. And so hopefully as that tech continues to improve, that kind of ends up being the story and the narrative that people focus on. I think it will take time to kind of move past the FTX narrative, but hopefully what you're seeing on the tech side is a good step towards us kind of moving past that.
Fantastic. Yeah, I do. Going back to what you said previously, as well, the very cheap gas fees are a real plus of Solana, and it's a very easy blockchain, in my opinion, to use. I think Phantom, the Phantom wallet, did a world of good at sort of onboarding people from EVM to Solana. If you compare, say, other non-EVM chains, for example, one that I'm interested in, I just like reading about it, is called ICP. The wallets there, they're incredibly different from anything EVM, anything out there at the moment, and you know, you need to do a lot of research to actually sort of work out how they work. But yeah, Solana Phantom, yeah, it's, I think, enabled mass adoption quite well. Obviously, you mentioned as well, you know, things happening on Solana first. Was it Frank from DGods that sort of started the catalyst for the whole royalties discussion?
So I don't think it was Frank. I think really what the catalyst was is we had a marketplace called Yaw that went to this optional royalties model. It was, I want to say it was either July or August of last year, and that's really what started this domino effect. You saw Magic Eden go to optional royalties a couple of months later as their market share was declining, and other platforms popping up that kind of offered the optional royalty route. And so it was kind of a cascading effect, similar to honestly what you've seen on Ethereum, right? Where you had kind of X2Y2 and some of these other marketplaces popping up like Blur and others that really kind of catered more towards the trading crowd that kind of viewed royalties as just friction on their trades, right? Something that was kind of like a tax on the trade. And so what we've tried to create here on Solana is kind of various options for creators to use. And so we've created a new asset class, NFTs with programmability. We think of programmability as kind of just another feature of NFTs, similar to how some creators might find it useful to have mutable NFTs or other features, whether they want to do art upgrades or things like that in the future. Programmability is kind of another feature that they can choose to use, which gives them the ability to kind of program in rule sets. Those rule sets can govern what kind of programs are allowed to interact with the NFT. And so let's say there was a marketplace that chose to not enforce royalties. That marketplace could effectively be restricted from interacting with the creators' NFTs as part of their collection. And so it's an option that creators can choose to use. The old standard that doesn't have those types of restrictions continues to exist alongside this new standard. And so when creators come to Solana and they want to create digital assets, they have options. And that's really what we try to provide them is kind of a menu to pick from. And ultimately, I think market forces will decide kind of what the collectors are willing to purchase, what kind of level of restriction they're okay with, or what flexibilities are important to them that they want to preserve. I think those things are still going to continue to play out, and we'll see. And the reality, right, is programmable NFTs, they're probably not the right fit for all creators. Some creators might want to create some sort of more kind of like digital artifact, right, that is immutable, that is not meant to be tampered with, and just kind of sits there on the blockchain as something that lives on forever, where the collector has as much ownership as possible of that asset. And maybe NFTs with programmability isn't the right asset class for that. On the other hand, you could have someone who maybe wants to have an NFT that's more modifiable in the future, whether that has to do with art upgrades. Perhaps it's an asset in a game, and that asset evolves over time as maybe you reach different levels in the game, things like that. And so you can envision a world where those types of NFTs are really useful. And frankly, we're seeing other blockchains that are trying to build technology to attract game developers and things like that are also creating kind of, they might brand it differently. Maybe they call it dynamic NFTs or vice versa, but NFTs that do have this type of functionality that's built for different use cases. And so we're really just trying to give creators kind of the options here to choose on Solana. And we think ultimately that's a real strength of the chain. I think a lot of us too here at Metaplex, our goal is really to grow the space. And so when we think about kind of what are the types of technological advancements that are going to lead to a lot more users and creators, these are the types of things that hopefully are a step in that direction. Time will tell, but ultimately the goal is 100xing the space or so. And so hopefully this is a step in that direction.
Most definitely. Yeah, well, thank you once again, yeah, for the very in-depth explanation. With the programmable NFTs, Sorry if I get this a little bit wrong, because it's quite a new concept to me. There's a project that I'm a fan of on Solana called Star Atlas, and their end goal is to have well, essentially, it's a first or third person MMO type game. And their end goal is to have everything on chain. So, for example, if you're flying a spaceship, this is just an example, and you got hit by a load of bullets, the damage to your aircraft would be put on chain. And maybe the physical appearance would change as well. Is that something that Solana and programmable NFTs could offer and could do? Is that the sort of thing? Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first application that we built for programmable NFTs was a royalty enforcement solution. And so all of the use cases that you see today that involve programmability are kind of more royalty focused. But you're right, like there's a wide range of applications that could probably be built in the future beyond just royalty enforcement. I'll admit that the royalty enforcement solution has been a lot of work on our end. And so like that's where our time has gone into. But if others want to create different programmability features, they're more than welcome to do it. And I'm sure there's certain things that we'll be exploring at some point down the road as well. Hard for me to opine exactly on whether Star Atlas could use it in the way that you're describing, but I think that's right. Like some of these types of kind of outside the box thinking where there is some sort of event that occurs, whether it's like a life cycle event or something like that, where the NFT is meant to respond to that. Those are the kinds of things that I think programmability will unlock. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are much smarter than me that could tell you technologically how exactly that will work. But yeah, I think that's kind of the goal, right? Is some of these types of use cases that frankly haven't been done before. I think that would be great for everyone, and honestly would do a lot to onboard people into NFTs who don't even realize that they're interacting with NFTs. Kind of the longer term goal that I think is kind of a win-win for everyone.
Indeed. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of advantages for NFTs. Well, on the subject of gaming, within gaming. For example, on Steam, with CSGO knife skins, if you could have them as NFTs and not just tied to your, say, Steam account, there's a lot that can be done. It wouldn't just be tied to an email and sort of on, my computer. I could own it. Bit of a strange concept.
There was a Counter-Strike gun skin that sold for like over $100,000 the other day, like literally this week. Like those are the kinds of things, right? That maybe should be NFTs, so that person can then own that gun skin. And if they want to sell it down the road, maybe they want to just retain ownership of it in a way that doesn't just become limited to the game itself. Those are the kinds of things that NFTs could unlock. And I think we as an industry could probably do a better job of articulating that value proposition to the average person. I know amongst gamers, sometimes there's an aversion to NFTs, but there is a lot of value that comes with that. And kind of, I think, like you said, gun skins or knife skins is a great example of that.
Yeah, and in a way, they are essentially NFTs anyway, because they're non-fungible. They're not tied to a specific value, and they're tokens that you just trade on the Steam marketplace. So they're pretty much NFTs already, just not on a blockchain. So they're using NFTs whether they like it or not. Anyway, I've got a few questions from our editing team as well that go quite into depth into Metaplex, and a lot of them, are quite interesting. So I'll just ask, the first of them. So Metaplex recently announced Creator Studios just over a week ago. We'd like to learn more about it and how it is empowering creators to bring their vision into reality. So I've got your Metaplex Creator Studio sort of ready to share on the screen, which looks very exciting indeed. But if you could tell us a little bit more about, the Creator Studios, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, happy to do that. So like I mentioned, some of the first programs that we created back when Metaplex was founded in 2021 were just like programs basically for minting digital assets. So the most popular one is Candy Machine. And one piece of feedback that we constantly got from creators was they felt like they needed a developer in order to interact with the program. The technical requirements were just beyond kind of the skill set of the average creator who wanted to use Candy Machine. And so we didn't want that to be a limiting factor in who could be a creator. We wanted it to be something that was a bit simpler, that kind of abstracted away a lot of the complexity around creating digital assets. And so what we've developed is a no-code tool called Creator Studio that allows you to access kind of those same programs, but through a no-code UI. And so Creator Studio is currently in closed alpha. I think the announcement that your team was referring to was kind of expanded access to Creator Studio, because we first opened up the closed alpha back in November of last year, I want to say. It was open to a handful of creators, maybe 30 creators or so, who used it to create various NFT projects. The most popular one that some people in the audience might be familiar with is Claynosaurs, which is absolutely taken off. It's kind of the face of Solana NFTs, if you will, right now. You're seeing a ton of interest from the ETH crowd who's coming over to Solana and buying their first Sol NFT because they heard about Claynosaurs. They're using things like Phantom and other wallets for the first time that they might not have used. And that was something that minted on Creator Studio. And so a great kind of way for us to showcase the power of the tool. Since then, there's been a lot of other really awesome drops that have come out. And so we're actually at the point now where we're expanding access beyond kind of the original 30 creators or so who had access to it, to now kind of opening up a pretty extensive wait list that we've had for a while now. And so kind of on a weekly basis right now, we're adding anywhere from 50 to 100 plus creators a week into the tool. And ultimately, the long-term goal is to get to the point where the tool can be used by anyone. They don't need Metaplex's permission to use it. They just go on the website, can log in, and can create digital assets with the tool. I think we have some ways to go just in terms of continuing to refine the tool, add features, make sure we can handle the capacity and the number of users that want to use the tool. But right now we're testing that. We're kind of seeing how many can we handle at once. And so it's a really exciting process. The team's been working super hard to get to this point. And so we're really excited to be here, and we're excited to see what people create with it. I think the other thing too, which you'll see is, so right now, the tool can be used to create generative drops, one pieces, limited and open editions. And really a lot of the tooling is around the asset creation itself. I think you'll continue to see us add more features that can make those drops more complex if the creator wants to make them more complex, as well as thinking about different ways we can interact both with the creator and the collector, both prior to the asset creation and post asset creation. But ultimately, we want this to be a hub and a tool for creators to kind of be able to do everything they want to do through. And so we're really excited about it.
Fantastic. And I am too. So I've but been in crypto for a while, and I've delved into, launching NFT collections. At BSC News, we launched an NFT collection, BSC News NFT. We did that on the BNB chain, and we had a developer sort of work with us from a marketplace called Rareboard, who did a lot of the back-end Solidity stuff, which was just completely out of my depth. I told him, I don't really know anything, and then he'd be speaking to me like, oh yeah, you need to do this in terminal, open up command prompt. So to what extent is Metaplex no code? Could a person like me that's just familiar with the front end of everything be able to create an NFT collection, and would it be genuinely, I don't need to know any JavaScript or anything like that?
That's correct. So I like to joke, but it's true. Like, I'm certainly one of the least technical people at Metaplex. I'm on our partnerships team, and so I understand at a high level how some of these things work. But I'm certainly not a coder, and I don't know how to write JavaScript and things like that. And I could drop a drop on or through Creator Studio if I wanted to. It'd probably take me about 10 minutes. It's really not that challenging. And so you're right, like, this is meant for the average person to be able to create NFTs. And so some of those technical requirements that you mentioned, those aren't necessary to use the tool, which I think is really to open up a wider range of creators, both people who are in Web3 right now, who are looking for an easier way to create digital assets, as well as people who are not in Web3 but are NFT curious, right? Maybe they're a creator in some sort of kind of standard or traditional industry, and they're looking at how can I bring my creative talent to Web3. This is a way for them to potentially do that. And so, at least on Solana, I think that there's not a ton of other tools that really compare to this. And so, we're excited to bring this to those creators.
Fantastic. And before you release the studio to the masses and it's all just yeah, available to everyone, basically, you said that you're onboarding around 50 new projects or people a week at the moment. Is there anything specific that you look for in a project or a person that would like to launch with Metaplex at the moment? So a person watching this thinks, yeah, I want to launch an NFT collection on Solana using Metaplex. Is there anything perhaps that, yeah, you look for at the moment? I mean, do you give them a small interview or anything like that?
Yeah, so not really. Right now, we have a wait list of thousands of people who want access to the tool. And so I should caveat the first week that we kind of did this wave of new users, it was about 50, but I think the week after that, we did 100. And so we're actually going to be kind of like doubling that number every week. So it will increase rapidly. But no, I'd say the biggest thing we look for if someone wants access to the tool immediately is like, do they have kind of a project that they're like looking to do immediately? Just because we do have a pretty extensive wait list. But for those who are kind of trying to do a drop in the near term, it's certainly something we take into consideration when trying to figure out how do we start letting people off the wait list as soon as possible.
Fantastic. And is everything on Metaplex, you know, the sort of, well, everything within the studio, that the back end of it, is that all handled by servers that you are operating? So you need to sort of make sure that, you know, your side, your back end can handle it. Is that why you're sort of scaling up, you know, with a wait list at the moment?
So I think there's a couple of things there. So for one, we are interacting with various RPC providers who are kind of talking to the chain itself. And so you can think of like Triton and others who are kind of on the back end talking to our programs. And that would be the case as well if let's say you used Candy Machine, which is part of our open source program library, and that is actually kind of what's underneath the hood in Creator Studio is Candy Machine. But let's say you were to use kind of the open source version of Candy Machine, that would still be interacting with an RPC provider that it's kind of interacting directly with the chain. So it's not really any different from that perspective. I'd say actually more what is the reason we're kind of doing this waitlist method is more around the fact that I think there's kind of two main things. One is we're still continuing to improve the product. So if there's like a bug that we find, or we find that maybe the UI isn't as clear as it could be in a certain area, and we need to change the wording or change visually how something is showing up. That's feedback that we're still taking in. We want to hear it so that we can continue to make those improvements, given we are still in closed alpha. And I'd say the other thing too is just continuing to understand kind of how many questions people have, where they have questions, and what that support model can look like, just so that we make sure that we're scaling that kind of at the right rate and have the resources ready to handle people so they have a great experience with the tool.
Brilliant. And people that are currently using Metaplex, if they've got feedback, is it, you know, a Discord server or something like that that they'd come onto and give feedback?
That's right. So it's a Discord server. We have a bunch of kind of help center documentation that people can start off with looking at to the extent that they have more questions or want to interact with a human being. We also have a Discord server where they can submit tickets and go through that as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've looked at essentially what looks like a sort of a Git book, white paper type layout that you've got there, and yeah, there's a lot of information, which is great. Obviously, earlier you mentioned compression, which Solana and also obviously Metaplex can leverage. Would you be able to explain to us perhaps in simple terms, for people like myself, and maybe a lot of other people watching, how that works, and is it possible on any other chain? And yeah, basically, how does NFT compression work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll do my very best to answer this with kind of a simplified technical explanation. But currently, kind of with regular NFTs, if you will, right? All of the various information, whether it's the token, the metadata, or other kind of information related to the NFT itself, it's stored on chain. And that takes up a lot of space. It's expensive. And it limits kind of how many NFTs you can create at a very cheap price. What this does is it takes some of that information and it actually stores it off chain in Merkle trees. And so by doing that, you're able to actually store less of that data on chain. It reduces costs. Those Merkle trees, kind of the root of them, ends up getting still stored on chain. So there's certain aspects of the Merkle tree that's stored on chain, just not the entire thing. And so by doing that, you still get the security of the L1 without having to store every single piece of information on chain. And that allows us to bring down costs significantly. So it's something that we've been working with Solana on quite a bit. A lot of the various RPC providers like Helios, QuickNode, Genesis Go, Triton, others are also supporting compressed NFTs. And really the way that we think about it is this is a way to kind of, I would say, expand distribution of NFTs to support new use cases that are just too costly today. And so you're seeing a couple of examples of this already. One of them would be a messaging company or a messaging protocol on Solana called Dialect. Similar, I'm guessing some people in the audience use like Telegram or WhatsApp, things like that, when they're messaging with people. You know how there's like stickers that you can send in those messaging apps? So Dialect is a messaging protocol, but it's decentralized. And they're basically creating sticker packs inside the app. Those stickers are NFTs. There are some of them would be like common ones that a various creator might create. Sometimes that creator might create a rare one. It'd be pretty cool, right, to have like a rare Planosaur sticker that you could like send to someone that only you and a couple of people have. But they're using basically NFTs as those stickers. There's other examples where people are talking about, for example, like CrossMint. They facilitate kind of the APIs that power a lot of different tooling, airdrops, things like that. They're looking at kind of how do we do airdrops on a massive scale, right? And so when you think about why maybe some or how some of these other chains kind of try and differentiate themselves against Solana, a lot of them have gone after say like large enterprise customers, things like that. Polygon being an example of that. And their pitch is oftentimes like, well, it can be really cheap to do kind of large scale enterprise use cases for NFTs. With compression on Solana, the cost will come down considerably. The different types of users of Solana and NFTs, I think it also opens up a wider range of potential users, potentially more kind of like enterprise customers and things like that, that maybe were reluctant to kind of use Solana for NFTs previously just because of cost. And then also games, right? Like we talk about games, you think about how many items are inside of a game, we're talking millions, right? If not more than that. And so compression brings down kind of those costs dramatically to a point where I think it actually makes some of that stuff practical.
Wow. Very, very interesting. I learned a lot in those like 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you. And I hope I wasn't the only person that like tried to quietly Google Merkle tree as well. But yeah,
there is in those. So if you go on the Metaplex website, there's a link at the top where it says developers, and in there you can see various guides that we have for different tooling. There is a compression page in there. There is some kind of brief background on compression. So I think if you go to programs,
yep. Oh yeah.
you go to compression and then hit NFT compression. So the second link underneath code examples, and scroll down a little bit. you can see kind of overview, and if you go down further, I think there's a background section.
Wow.
I tried to parrot some of the basic talking points in this a little bit, which I don't know how good of a job I did.
You've done
But
very
this
well.
this
Mm.
gives you kind of some basic information on kind of how the Merkle trees work, how you could actually like recreate these NFTs, even if some of the RPC providers went down, because certain information is stored on chain and could be recreated, which I know is kind of some of the differences, right, between what's stored on chain and isn't stored on chain between
Yeah.
compressed and uncompressed NFTs. And so it talks about some of those various aspects, and probably in a lot deeper detail than I could go into personally.
Interesting. One thing that caught my eye was the Hydra wallet, and you say it's a wallet of wallets. This might not have anything directly, obviously, to do with Metaplex, but when I see the word Hydra and then a wallet of wallets, would you be able to tell us what this is a little bit?
That's a great question. This isn't something that I'm as familiar with as, say, Creator Studio or programmable NFTs. Um, this is something that's been out for a bit. I think kind of the way you could also think about it is kind of if you think about kind of NFTs. So we actually have another program that's called Fusion, where
Oh, yeah.
essentially an NFT could like own another NFT, and you could combine those NFTs together and fuse them together. There's some similarities in the concepts there. Obviously, Hydra is more kind of wallet specific, but I think kind of one of the takeaways here, probably at a higher level, is Metaplex is more than just kind of digital asset creation. We really try and create a lot of innovative tech for a variety of different use cases. And given the fact that the company, or sorry, the protocol kind of is the standards layer for Solana NFTs, we've had kind of a really great insight into what some of the different use cases are, and needs of kind of system, and have tried to build a lot of great tooling to support that.
Yeah, there's so much support as well for using tools on Solana via Metaplex. A candy guard, very nice. No, I think it's fascinating. I mean, I've used Solana. I have quite a few Solana NFTs, but this sort of makes me want to get more into the ecosystem because it's very, very accessible. It's sort of broken down that barrier to entry for people, wanting to essentially develop on the ecosystem. And on the subject, sort of going back a little bit of compression, I often see at the very top of Magic Eden the TPS, or the transactions per second number, and it's around, well, at the moment it's 4,065. In time, obviously, we hope more people will be using the Solana network. Can that go up? Will there be more node providers, and will compression help with that transactions per second? Because there have been times in the past where it's ground to a near halt, during the last couple of bull runs and things. It's been a while since that's happened. But yeah, I mean, if would compression help ease the load of transactions per second? That would be great.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different concepts to unpack there. So for one, on the transactions per second, that will definitely go up, not because of compression, but because of other things that are being built that are kind of more network specific. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with Jump's project FireDancer, but they're basically building a second client on Solana. I'm gonna get these numbers wrong, so please don't quote me directly, but it's something like 600,000 transactions per second is like doable with kind of some of the and there's ways to juice that number up to like 1 million transactions per second or something. So it's one of the most like I would say exciting developments in all of crypto like tech across any chain, and that's being built directly for Solana. And I think the fact that Jump kind of decided that Solana was a good chain to build this for tells you quite a bit about like what are some of the strengths of Solana, which is kind of that high just throughput. In terms of network stability, I know that's certainly something that's on everyone's top of mind. It's on ours as well. I know there's certainly been improvements that have been made to provide more stability, but there's more work to be done there. I don't think anyone would argue with you on that. Compression is not something that's going to necessarily be the driver there. That's more other tech improvements that are being made directly at the blockchain level. But certainly, I think there is a lot of focus on that as well. And then in terms of kind of how does compression tie to all of those things, I think it's more around that, like, compression will be able to take advantage and utilize, right? And so it's not necessarily going to drive the high throughput itself. Like I said, that's some other things that are going on. But what it will allow, right, is like, let's say you did have capacity for 600,000 transactions per second. Now you could actually do 600,000 transactions per second. There'd be like a use case for it, right? Maybe it's like has to do with NFTs or something like that, because NFTs are now being minted at bulk in a way that wasn't being done before. And so I think compression will be able to take advantage of a lot of these different other technological advancements that are happening on Solana away from compression. And so I think that's one of the things that's so exciting about the chain, right? It's like, whether it's NFT related, whether it's down actually at kind of the L1 layer itself, like there's so many different things that are being worked on from a tech perspective that I think by the time the next bull run comes around, whenever that is, and you have kind of new users who are coming back in, the tech that those people are going to be playing around with and using for the first time is going to blow their minds. And frankly, it's going to be significantly better than what our first experience was when we were using crypto. And maybe, just maybe, they won't really realize they're using crypto, right? They're just going to feel like they're using the internet. And so I think that that's the goal, and hopefully, at least on the NFT side, Metaplex can help make that vision come to life.
Definitely. Well, your website user interface, it seems very, very easy to use. And especially from a person like myself, sort of a not a very codey background, it's very attractive to use. Because I'd looked into, I want to call it bubblegum machine, no, candy machine, probably about a year and a half ago or so, and it was on GitHub, and scroll down a couple of sentences and stop there. But no, I think you've essentially broken down a barrier to entry, which is very, very good. So people can either do it themselves, or sort of will do it in-house rather than having to trust a person maybe that they don't really know. And from a security standpoint, obviously that's very good. And putting the transactions per second sort of into a bit of perspective as well, it's estimated that the MasterCard network can only do around, or up to 5,000 transactions per second. So at the moment, 4,000, that's not bad at all. Obviously, during high mint times when everyone's just hammering the network, you don't really get that with payments that often. No one around the world is all suddenly trying to buy the same thing at once. I don't know, they might do, but I think that scalability that you talked about is very, very attractive indeed. And from a just generally about Solana as a whole, sorry, not a hold. I'm not sure if it's this terminology is the same. So the node providers. Do you know sort of how many node providers in Solana there are, and to what extent, maybe in your opinion, is the network decentralized? Because perhaps on BNB chain, at one point at the moment, I think there's only 21 node providers, but they're looking to up that to, I think it's around 200 by the end of this year. But do you know, how, to what extent the Solana network is decentralized? Because I know that's something perhaps that people are not concerned about, but interested in.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So what most people probably don't know is that Solana has some of the highest number of validators out of any chain. And so the number at one point was 2,500 validators. So that's quite a bit. I think that number has gone up since then, but this is also not a metric that I track every day. but it's substantial, right? It's more than most chains out there. Most of the people who are calling Solana not decentralized are probably using a chain that actually has less validators. And in terms, there's another metric that people often look at, the Nakamoto coefficient, which basically it has to do with how many validators would have to be how many would you have to control to essentially not take over the network, but as it's another way of thinking about decentralization and how many validators are kind of like the critical number to control. And for Solana, it's 32, which I think is like the highest or second highest Nakamoto coefficient out of any chain. And it's significantly higher than most chains out there. And so there are, by kind of those types of decentralization metrics, Solana is quite decentralized. Obviously, the goal is to continue to improve those. I don't think anyone is satisfied with where they are today. But there's been huge strides made on decentralization over the last, call it 12 months or so, that honestly most people probably aren't familiar with. And so if they haven't seen some of those metrics, would highly encourage people to take a look at them. And I think they'll be pleasantly surprised.
Very good. Is that the same thing as preventing a 51% attack? So, for example, in Bitcoin, if a person was to own, say, 51% of all the validators, they could essentially fork the chain, and it wouldn't really be decentralized. Is that sort of the same thing that you were talking about? Because I had to Google the Nakamoto coefficient.
So I believe it is. I don't know that for a fact, though. I would encourage people to kind of look at that as well, but I think that is the same thing.
Great. I mean, you said you weren't.
Quote me on that.
No, that's absolutely fine. You said you're one of the least technical people at Metaplex, but some of the stuff you're saying, I've been Googling in the background quite a lot just to make sure that I know exactly what's going on. But I think what Metaplex is doing, what you're doing, is really, really useful. I don't know off the top of my head on other chains something like this that is happening at the moment. If you want to release NFTs on Ethereum, BNB chain, that sort of thing, you'd need to know a Solidity developer and will know quite a lot of other codey things as well. But I think, what you're doing is really, really good. And I do encourage people that are interested in launching an NFT project to obviously check out Metaplex. Do you know off the top of your head what perhaps your Discord link is? Do you have a vanity link for your Discord?
Let me take a look. I want to say it is on our Twitter page.
Okay. Just check 2 seconds.
Yeah, so if the Discord link is just discord.gg/Metaplex. At least that's the one that's shown. Yeah, that's right. And if you go to our Twitter page, which is just @Metaplex, you'll see the link at the top there as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can see it. And their Twitter page is just @Metaplex. I think what you're building is really impressive. I know it might be hard to say a date, obviously, in development in general, game development, whatever development, putting sort of an end date, not an end date, but a date where your product is fully released to the public is very, very hard to do. But do you have a public timeline at all, an estimated time frame, a date or something, when perhaps you think, okay, we've done enough testing, we've got some great feedback, I think we're ready to not show the world, but open this up to everyone?
Yeah, it's a good question. We don't have a date in mind. If I set one on this, I think our product team would kill me. So we don't have one in mind. But what I can say is we are opening up like very quickly. And so if people do have interest, encourage them to send us a DM on Metaplex, or sorry, @Metaplex. And we'll try and get them access as soon as we can. We're on Twitter quite a bit. And so if there is kind of a project that someone's interested in launching, we'll certainly do our best to kind of expedite that process.
I might send you a DM after this.
Okay.
I've got an idea
Sounds good.
Yeah, sort of Lego men, but obviously not Lego because that's copyright. But no, this yeah, I'm very very excited about Metaplex. I did quite a lot of research on you last night, but then talking to you now, it's not only made me excited about Metaplex and sort of what I can now do with NFTs and not have to have rely on someone else or risk security, someone else writing a contract that I just have no idea what's written in there. I could manage it all myself, which I think is really, really exciting. It's sort of dawning on me now that me, Tom, sitting here in my room, and anyone, listeners like you can now yourself, not have to speak to a marketplace to, write the contract for you, or is it still called a contract on Solana?
It is. People
Okay,
use a variety of different terms, but yeah, people call it a contract as well.
fantastic. That everyone can just do it themselves. I think it's brilliant. So thank you for what you've given the crypto world. Obviously, I've asked you a lot of questions about Metaplex, about crypto in general, obviously about Solana overall as well. Is there anything that I've not asked you at all that you'd like to bring up or discuss or anything?
No, I think you hit all the major things. Obviously, if people have any questions, feel free to send us a DM on Twitter. But yeah, no, I think you hit all the main stuff.
Fantastic. Well, Mac, honestly, thank you so much for your time. I think it would be good, obviously, if you're up for it, to come on, a couple of months down the line or something, or when you've released more new features. What I hope to do, I'll send you a DM after this, and I'm going to do another live stream or two, using your platform as a no-code person, and sort of and just show what it's about and how easy it. Actually, I don't personally know how easy it is to use. I'm sure it is, but I'll be able to sort of show people what, to an extent, they're missing, because I'm sure there's thousands, tens of thousands of people out there that want to release their own NFT collection, but just there's such huge, well, they think there's such huge barriers to entry, but Metaplex, the way forward. There you go. But Mac, honestly, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really interesting. And yeah, I mean, anything you want to say before we say cheerio?
No, just thank you for having us on the show. This has been a blast. Also great to just reach kind of new audiences, those who are using different chains, who are maybe discovering Solana for the first time or considering creating an NFT. I think Solana is an awesome place to do that. And we're excited to kind of help drive forward the NFT ecosystem there.
Definitely. Great. Well, thank you very much again, Mac. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And hopefully, I'm going to send you a DM about setting up an account. Speak very, very soon. Thank you again. Good night.
Sounds great. Thank you, Tom.
Bye-bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mac from Metaplex. And as you could probably tell, I'm personally very excited about this platform. I'm going to send them a DM after this, asking to sort of be part of their closed ecosystem, not closed ecosystem, but to have a sort of creator account, and then streams down the line. I can maybe walk through how to create your own NFT collection using Metaplex. I'd just like to take this opportunity very quickly just to mention our sponsor, which, as you might be able to see, is here, which is BSC Protect RPC. It's made by the company called Bloxroot. They also were tweeting the other day that they're working on Solana products, because at the moment this one is specifically for BNB chain. It stops you getting front run and also stops sandwich attacks. All you need to do is add that custom RPC URL. What you can do, you can scan the, sorry, my camera is mirrored, so scan that QR code down there. You'll be taken to a page where you can easily add that custom RPC URL to whatever wallet you're using, be it MetaMask, Crypto.com wallet, whatever it is. Also on the BSC.news website, we've got under the tools section at the top, an RPC list where if you just click add to MetaMask, it'll add to your MetaMask. But once again, thank you very, very much, everyone, for tuning in. That was Mac from Metaplex. And one of the most interesting crypto conversations, Solana conversations I've had. We definitely will be covering them again in the future. We're live every weekday at 7 p.m. UTC on Twitter, on YouTube, then other platforms as well, like Trovo, Rumble, and things, if you use them. Anyway, thank you very much again, everyone, for tuning in. do trade safe. It's a very strange time in the crypto world at the moment. The huge Bitcoin pump, I don't really know what's going on. I haven't looked at it for the last 4 hours or so, but trade safe, everyone. That was Metaplex, Metaplex, and Mac from there. And I'm Tom. See you tomorrow.